Hi, Heidi ho, Heidi ho. So, thought for the day. Mitzri and the Mitzrayim. So that would be Egypt and the Egyptians. So we'll call them the Epstein class. The era of Rob, the mixed multitude to come along with Israel. So, Paro says, let us deal harshly with them, lest they rise up against us. Preemptive strikes. You know, the era of Rav, which I've said before, those who have the frankest ideology believe in doing certain things to little boys and little girls and women, and they want to give you bread and circuses and entertain you and tell you who your enemy is, and the whole time they're pirates. So you look at the skull and bones. They're putting the stuff right in your face. Those are UCC codes, Admiralty law, law of war. The men of war will not enter the promised land. So when you follow their dictates and you follow their propaganda, you become part of the era of Rav. The Giborim who want to make names for themselves, the men of war. So they want to have preemptive strikes all the time. Those same individuals believe in taking from others. They're like parasites. They want to live off the sweat equity of other men. They want to steal your God-given rights. So they give you a time zone act, and they take away Hashem's calendar, or Abba's calendar. They give you a different time to follow altogether. They have you convinced that the middle of the night is 12 o'clock at the end of the day. No, 12 o'clock at the end of the day is when the sun goes down. Ari Bob had never broke their covenant with the sun or the moon. The moon rules over the night, and the sun rules over the day. Pure and simple. So, in the middle of the night. When is the middle of the night? Well, the middle of the night for me is 6 a.m. for you. That's what you would recognize as 6 o'clock. If the day ends at 12, then the middle would be 6. So it's still dark out at my 6 a.m. Kind of like right now. It is 1800 hours, 1810, or 10 after 6 p.m. And according to the Time Zone Act, it is 1342 hours right now. Time Zone Act. So there's a big difference. My day ends before the era of Rav's day ends. So anyway, preemptive strikes. Yeah, that's Paro. That's the philosophy of Paro. So let's get them before they have a chance to fend for themselves. Let's get them before they stand up against us. So that whole thing, it clicked to mind. That's what Paro says. Men who are the men of renown, men of war, who want to make a name for themselves. Well, unfortunately, there is no such thing as Jew. There is, if you're following what the Romans give you, bread and circuses. So, Paro came back as Hitler. And I honestly feel that Hitler is now somebody else. And who is it that wants to go to war with everybody else in the guise of protecting Yisrael? I've seen it, and it just turns my stomach. So, what's going on with Gaza? If you beat people down enough, sooner or later, they're going to rise up. You can't blame a man for rising up. You can't blame people for wanting to fend off hostile forces that are around them. So kind of like what's going on with that portion of land that everybody knows is Iran. I sat and watched Professor Morandi have a discussion with the female, and I can't think of who she was, but anyway, she talks about how repressive Iran is. When you're in an open-air prison, you can think you're free, but not be free. So, you look at what some call the mark of the beast in the United States, in Israel. Got to use that Gregorian calendar and time zone act, else you can't contract and you can't work, and it's almost impossible to work. So anyway, because they don't want their women to be taken advantage of by the Epstein class. So the rest of the world, you have your sons and daughters prancing around half naked. It's just an open smorgasbord for the Epstein class. Bread and circuses. Got them all in bread and circuses. And then you wonder why the Epstein class is going after them. Well, because they're wicked. They're the heir of Rav, the mixed multitude, who live in the Yetzirah, the evil inclination, the reptilian mind. So that's a message for today. Preemptive strikes. That would be Pharaoh. So, wonder who that would be now, who wants to have all these preemptive strikes against everybody and use that for an excuse to cause harm. God bless. Much love.